Hello, everybody. Welcome to AMA LTL. My name is Maria Suleiman. I'll be your presenter today. I am going to go ahead and share my screen. I want to do a quick tech check. Please raise your hands if you can hear me and see my screen. The webinar will be starting in exactly 5 minutes, but I wanted to jump on a little earlier just to make sure that we're all good. Awesome, awesome, awesome. I see a lot of raised hands. Thank you so much, guys, for joining today. I am so excited about today's edition and today's webinar because I'm going to be talking about my favorite, I would say one of my favorite topics ever. All right. Um, just if you are new to joining us, thank you. If you're new to joining us, AMA LTL stands for AMA Consulting, which is my company, LTL, Lunchtime Learning Series. And we started this series 3 years ago because we offer people development services for federal agencies. And so what will happen is after a very nice leadership development program or really nice training, folks will say, what you presented was really great. You gave us a lot of tools. You left us with a lot of job aids, but we would like to stay connected with you and continue learning. And so we created these bite-sized learning opportunities twice a month on a variety of topics concerning management leadership, work productivity. We also talk about entrepreneurship because I also have a following of small businesses and entrepreneurs. And so we talk about small business programs, different topics concerning entrepreneurship. All right, we have a couple more people joining. So please let me know by raising your hand if you can hear me and see my screen. Um, I want to make sure that everything is all good with the technology. Sounds like we're all good. Awesome. I'm getting the hands raised as folks are joining. I am going to put my bio up here just for you to review. I'm not going to read my bio. The biggest thing about these webinars is that we only have 30 minutes and I try to cover a lot of content. So I'm definitely not going to spend time reading my bio, but the quick things I want to highlight. Thank you, Nancy. Nancy says I can hear you and see your screen. Thank you so much. The big thing I want to highlight about my background is that I've been an executive coach for 10 years. So I actually started delving into coaching, I would say more like 15, 16 years ago when I was an academic advisor at UMUC, working with graduate students to determine their career path. So that was more like career coaching. And so, but I didn't realize so much that that would help me later on when I started working with senior leaders as an OD consultant and as a coach, working with federal agencies, so branch chiefs, division directors, and senior leaders, SCSs. And then I went to Georgetown for my coach training. So a lot of what I'm going to be sharing today is the real methodology of coaching. So I just want to highlight that for my background and also being a business owner for 8 years. Now it'll be 9 years in June. Just what I've practical tools and tenets that I've used to help leaders, managers, supervisors, as well as the ones that I use even in my personal life as a mom of four. All right. How are we? Where are we? We have exactly 1 minute. If you're just joining, please make sure that you can hear me and see my screen. You can raise your hand or drop a comment in the question box. Um, okay. All right. It looks like we're all good for technology. I'm going to go ahead and get started. Just a quick overview of AMA Consulting. As I mentioned earlier, we're a government contracting firm. We offer services in three primary areas. So organizational performance, that's what I talked about earlier, helping leaders develop strategy. We do a ton of training for civilian and DoD agencies, Department of Education, NASA, GSA, HHS, FDA. I can't name them all, but we do a ton of trainings because we're also on the GSA schedule. So our government clients get to us that way, and we're 8A certified and a women-owned small business. Business transformation service, so we have teams that do change management for technology adaptation, process improvement, performance and quality management. And then we also do technology management consulting, specifically as I mentioned earlier, technology adaptation, automation adaptation, adoption rather, excuse me, I want to say adaptation, Technology adoption. So automation is huge and it's really getting traction in different federal agencies. And so we are supporting some agencies with adoption for that, specifically adoption for the workforce. What does it mean when you're executing an automation project? How's that going to impact your workforce? And we provide assistive technology services. So that's Section 504, 508 compliance, web accessibility, mobile accessibility. That's all I'm going to say about us. And I am going to delve in to today's webinar. As I said, I am so excited about this topic, and I want us to get started with a quick poll. Before I go into what coaching is about, I want us to start with a quick poll. So I'm going to go ahead and launch the poll. And and the question is, what obstacles prevent you from getting the results that you want as a supervisor? I want to hear from you. I want to hear, so poll is now open. We're going to take exactly 30 seconds. So please, please, please respond as soon as possible. What are the obstacles that you face in getting the results that you want? So I have put in three answers here. So one, my team isn't operating as a unit. So this is where each member is working in silos. Everybody's pushing their own agenda. Everybody's focused on their functional units, and there is no cohesiveness. The second one is lack of resources, vacant positions, extremely high workload. And the third one is team member personalities and behaviors. So I want to hear from everybody. Right now, we have 75% of people online voting. We have a large group. So I want to hear from as many people as possible before I close the poll. Please, 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 please. Yeah, we're getting up there. 79%, 82%. Let's get to 100%. 86. Great. Great, great, great. Okay, 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 okay. And we are at 89%. I am going to close the poll in exactly 10 seconds because I want to make sure that we have time. Let's see if we can get a couple more people to participate and go ahead and take the poll. 5, 4, 3. Are we going to get up to 90%? 2, 1. Okay, good. We did great. So 89% of people voted. I'm going to go ahead and close the poll. So I'm going to share so that you can see the poll results. So now everybody should be able to see the poll results. So this is really interesting. So the poll is almost evenly split, but vacant positions and lack of resources and team member personalities and behaviors kind of won out here in terms of the obstacles that folks are facing as supervisors, as managers, as leaders. And the reason I put up this poll is because I want us to get into the mind frame of how you can really apply coaching in your job, and what the discussion that we're going to have today, how you can use it to solve some of these challenges that you have, whether it's the vacant positions or lack of resources causing burnout or causing low engagement, or whether it's team member personalities and behaviors. That is a huge one. And like I said, I coach leaders. I coach scientists, I've coached acquisition professionals, I've coached IT folks, I've coached administrators, and I'm telling you, everywhere you go, there are people, and people are complex. And so personalities and behaviors is a huge part. And then also with the issue, the challenge of my team not operating as a unit, that is another big thing too. I wanted to say that all of these different challenges that you are facing as a manager or a leader, you can use coaching as a tool to address it. And that is where I want us to start our conversation today. Whatever challenge it is that you're facing as a manager and as a leader, coaching can be a really powerful tool. And I think is one of the underrated tools. People talk about mentoring, they talk about training, they talk about networking, relationship building, influence, but coaching is a tool that is really not talked about, and it's a competency that is not addressed that can really, really help you. All right, I'm going to go ahead and hide the results so that we can go back to the content. I just want to check in really quickly, make sure that everybody can see my screen. Now we're back to the PowerPoint. Can you just raise your hands, please, to make sure that that you can see my screen, and we're going to delve into the content. And also, if you have any questions, comments, please let me know. Post it in there. So somebody says none of those apply to me. So if none of what I put on there applies to your challenge, you can quickly type what challenge you're having in the questions box. So this was from Anita. Anita said none of those apply to me. What challenge? So she says I'm not a supervisor. Okay, so great. If you're not a supervisor, and you feel like none of those apply to you, you can still use coaching in solving some problems that you have, or use it as a tool in managing your customers. And the analogy that I'm going to use today is how I use coaching to help my daughter yesterday. So I have a 12-year-old, a preteen, and I'm going to use that analogy because I want to illustrate how you can really use coaching to solve any interpersonal problems or challenges that you may have. Someone said I couldn't answer the question on the poll. I'm not sure why. Okay, so now let's go. Can you have to email us and tell us what exactly the issue was? And could have been a technical issue. All right, so now let's delve into, excuse me, into the content. What is coaching? So as I said, there's people, because coaching is something that's somewhat popular. You hear about life coaching, excuse me, career coaching. People use the word randomly, oh, I'm coaching this person. There's also like a sports coaching, like a football coach. But in terms of executive coaching, which is what we're going to be discussing today, I just want to make sure that I give a clear definition so that we're on the same page. Coaching is partnering with a client to increase their learning and change behavior to achieve results for the organization. So coaching is specifically for increasing the client's learning and their capabilities for the purpose of changing behavior. So as we saw earlier with the poll, and actually even with a lot of other issues that have to do with decision making, that have to do with proper apportioning of resources, it all boils down to behavior. It all boils down to behavior because that is how we human beings interact with the world, is through our behavior. That's how we express ourselves, through our innate personalities and our behavior. So coaching is partnering. So I like to give this example or this analogy. I say coaching is an engagement, training is an event. So training is basically for knowledge transfer. So it's usually an event. Mentoring is a process. It's a long-term process of a relationship for the purposes of motivation, for the purposes of, it could be knowledge transfer. It could also be coaching. So coaching can be part of mentoring. So those are distinctions that we need to have so we are clear on what we're talking about coaching. What does a coach do? And so your job title may not say internal coach, but you can coach as part of your everyday duties as you deal with customers, as you deal with your employees, as you deal with your team, if you're a supervisor or you're a manager. Okay, so what do you do as a coach? What should you be doing as a coach? I will put it that way. So one of the things that you should be doing is sharing conceptual frameworks, images, and metaphors with your clients. And again, your client could be your employee, it could be your team member, it could be a customer, to make abstract issues more meaningful and practical. So one of the challenges that we have is that we are not able to really organize our thoughts, our visions, our planning, our expectations, because everything is all mumbled up. So part of what you can do as a coach is using analogies, using stories, using specific frameworks, images, metaphors, to make abstract issues more practical, to make very complex issues more digestible. The second thing is, as a coach, you should be encouraging rigor. Essentially, what you're trying to do with the process of coaching is to challenge people's positions or challenge what people have always done, right? Because remember, with coaching, you're trying to increase learning, you're trying to change behavior. So there's some rigor involved in coaching. So yes, a lot of times you see coaching as, that pep talk, someone giving that pep talk, someone helping you, someone providing empathy, but also there's rigor in coaching because what you're trying to do is to help the client organize their thinking and expectation and helping them make distinctions. So that is a big thing, is getting a distinction between, is this a problem, or is this a polar is this just an issue? You know, is this a situation? What is it? Is it a communication issue, or is it a resource issue? Is it a process issue, or is it a behavior issue of the team? So those distinctions can help you really drill down to what the issue is and provide solutions. Okay. And then as a coach, you're challenging clients to learn and change behavior. That's what you should be doing, is challenging clients to learn and change behavior. And also as a coach, you're helping clients build resilience in tough situations. If you have followed a lot of our AMA LTLs, last year I did a series on leadership. And I talked about how leadership is leading yourself, leading people, and leading in a system. And it's exactly in that order. And a big part of coaching is really help people develop the capacity to lead themselves. Okay. And so it really, really, and the core of that is resilience. We're living in a VUCA world, you know, volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous world. Things are constantly changing in the world of technology, in the era of information, in the era of automation, where information, we're getting bombarded with things every day. Things are changing, systems are moving. What we knew even 5 years ago, 2 years ago, as the norm is changing. So that rapid change can lead to chaos. And so part of what you're doing as a coach is to help the people that you're working with to build that resilience or resiliency in complex and tough situations. So that's what you should be doing. That's what coaching is really about, and that's what a coach does. Okay, so you can see here, there's nothing here about technical knowledge. That's all training, that's knowledge transfer. There's nothing here in coaching about about um, about other people or about team. Coaching is about the individual. Coaching is about the person. It is all centered on that person that you're coaching, that you're working with, to help them make distinctions, to see abstract issues or things that they're facing in more meaningful and practical ways. Is for that person to learn and change behavior, and for that person to build resiliency. So this is another big thing about coaching. If you don't take anything away from today, take this. Coaching is about the individual. It's not about the external. It's about the internal. It's about the person. It's about the individual, and it's helping the person accomplish the goals that they want to accomplish doing these specific things. Any questions, comments so far? Any questions or comments so far? Let me look really quickly and see if we have any questions or comments. So somebody says, I've lost sound. Patricia, can everybody else hear me? Maybe your computer, can you check? And it may be your computer. It seems like everybody else can hear me. All right, so now that we've talked about what coaching is, now let's go into what does coaching require? You know, so when do you coach? When is the right time for you to use coaching as a tool, right? So number one, the right time for you to be able to use coaching, again, I'm going to use the analogy or the example of the conversation I had with my daughter last night. So a little bit of background. And the reason I'm using this is because I want to show you how you can use coaching as a tool in almost any relationship or in almost any situation. So it doesn't have to be, you don't have to be a supervisor or a manager or leading a team to coach. So I use my coaching skills even with my children. So I will use this example. So last night I had a conversation with my daughter. I noticed the last 2 days that she had been moody. She really wasn't eating well. And, you know, every time I asked her what was going on, she would just say, you know, I'm fine, Mom, I'm fine. So she's 12 years old. She's in middle school, 7th grade. She's an excellent student. But, you know, they're at that stage where they're trying to, you know, really settle in their identity, coming up to the teenage years. You know, they're questioning themselves, they're questioning people's perception about them. And so I sensed that there was something going on. And so yesterday I made a coaching intervention. So I'm going to use that conversation as illustration for the tenets that we're discussing. Now, one of the things that was present is that there was trust, right? So first thing is, you cannot coach somebody where there is no trust or rapport. That's the one thing I just want to say upfront. So and then the trust is a product of relationship building. So whether you're a supervisor, whether you're a supervisor, whether you're a manager, you're leading a branch, or you're leading a unit, or you're leading a business, or you're part of a collaborative team where there is no clear leader. You trust is a requirement for coaching, because trust and rapport is what's going to make that coaching engagement successful. So I just want to let you know that one of the requirements is trust, and trust is as a result of building relationship. The trust is that person believing that you have their interest at heart, you're truly there to help them. Unfortunately, sometimes coaching has been used in organizations as a punitive tool. So somebody doesn't score or doesn't score favorably on a performance review, and you're like, yeah, you need a coach. And so sometimes that has made people have this negative connotation to coaching, and sometimes people don't want to accept coaching because they feel like, oh, something is wrong with me, or I'm underperforming, or I have problems, so I have to have a coach. Okay, so that is where trust and rapport really comes in, because you, as wanting to use coaching as a tool, you need to be able to develop that rapport with them and say, hey, listen, I am just here because I want to help you. I want to support you to accomplish your goal. I want to help you work on what you want to work on. And it's for your benefit. I'm not trying to sabotage you. And that's where confidentiality comes in. And because whatever you discuss with that person cannot be used, negatively in a coaching engagement. So all of that has to do, and you have to explicitly communicate that. All of that helps to build trust and rapport. So going back to the example of my daughter, I've worked very hard, and I hope, and as a parent, you never know if you're doing things right or wrong, but I hope that I've communicated to her that she can trust me, that, she can share things with me, that even though I play the role also of a disciplinarian, I am not going to, give her consequences for sharing how she feels or sharing what she's going through. So that trust piece was a big part of, me having the access to be able to make that intervention with her last night. The second piece is partnership. So remember I said earlier in the definition, coaching requires partnership between the coach and the client, or the coach and the person that you're coaching. Okay, so there cannot be dependencies. So the client cannot depend on the coach to do the work for them. It is remember, coaching is about the person. It is the person's work. Is their problem that they're trying to solve. So they have the ownership, right? They can't be dependent on the coach. And as a coach, you're not training the client, and you can't force your ideas on the coach, on the client. So you can't tell the client what you think they should be working on. It has to be something that they want to work on. So your job there is to partner. It's not to direct, it's not to force, it's not to coerce. So this partnership is really important. And part of that partnership means there has to be agreement. So we see this all the time. A lot of people, leaders in particular, maybe you have somebody on your team and you notice that, they have an issue with tardiness. And you automatically just jump in and say, well, I want to coach this person, or I want to help them. I want to make sure that they're not being tardy, or they have an issue with procrastination, and they're not delivering their task on time. And you want to jump right in. You first have to take that back step of building trust and understand that it's a partnership. If they don't want to work on it, if they don't see it as an issue, if they don't want to do the work, then you don't have a contract. You don't have a partnership. You don't have an agreement. So that's very, very important. I see the questions. I see that there are some questions. I see the chat box popping. So let me just look in there and see. So this is very important in coaching. You have to, okay, so everybody's saying that they can hear me. All right. You have to have that agreement. And so what that agreement looked like, back to the analogy of me and my daughter, was, her name is Ejiman. I said, Ejiman, I noticed that the last 2 days you have not been yourself. So are you willing to talk about it? So remember, this has been going on for 2 days. 2 days ago, she wasn't willing to talk about it. Yesterday, she wasn't willing to talk about it. I approached her again today. Now there was agreement. And she said, yes, yeah, let's talk about it. And initially she was like, yo, am I in trouble? I said, no, you're not in trouble. I just want us to have a conversation because I sense that something is off. So now we have a partnership. We have agreement. It's her. She had to come to the place where she wanted to talk and she wanted to resolve the issue. And also I couldn't force my way to say, hey, yes, sit down, let's talk about this. So this is very important. There must be a contract. There must be agreement. The third point is that there must be a challenge. There must be a problem. There must be specific things that the client wants to resolve. This is very, very important because this is where coaching has kind of gone lost is, I would say, its potency, if you will, because people just think that coaching is about having a conversation or coaching is about just being supportive. No, coaching is about using specific tools in partnership with a client to address a particular issue for the benefit of the organization. So there must be something specific that the client wants to resolve. There must be a challenge, it must be an issue. Again, going back to the poll that we did earlier, if you have a team member who is having difficulties as a result of the fact that you have vacant positions or you have a lack of resources, and so they're doing a job that's really meant for 2 or 3 people and they're suffering with burnout, then that is the challenge. The challenge is how to keep them motivated and engaged through going while they have to manage the heavy workload. Okay, or the challenge may be how to muster the courage to articulate that this is a problem and actually to get buy-in from senior leadership to solve the problem. So you can see how you have to get very granular and you have to really probe to figure out what the problem is that you want to solve. And then the last thing about coaching is that coaching requires that you have results. And this is why it is a tool. It is a tool to solve a problem for a specific outcome. And for me, the specific outcome I was looking for my daughter was for number one, for her to come out of that gloomy state and to resolve whatever the issue was so that she would be back to her normal, bubbly, and happy self. Okay, so that is the specific outcome I was looking for. So coaching needs to have metrics attached to it. Coaching, you need to know, how would we know that we've accomplished what we set out to accomplish? What does that look like? So for example, if you're working with a client and they're suffering from burnout as a result of a lack of resources, or you're working with a client that has a boisterous personality and they take over meetings, a specific metric can be, okay, maybe let's work on how you have less speaking time during the meetings and more listening time, and actually measure that. Like, how many times did you interrupt somebody? That can be measured. So coaching needs to have specific results in order for it to really, really be impactful and meaningful. Any questions or comments? So I have a question. Can an employee contract with the manager and be the coaching provider? I'm not sure I understand the question. So let me read it again. Can an employee contract with the manager and be the coaching provider? Oh, so can an employee coach a manager? That is an interesting question. That is a very interesting question. So now, I'm an ICF certified coach, and ICF is the International Coaching Federation, and ICF has ethics standards. And so there are a couple of things with ethics with coaching that you can't do. So for example, it's not ethical for you to coach both a manager and an employee of that manager at the same time, because remember, trust and building rapport. If that employee knows that you're also coaching your manager, and if, let's say, some of the challenges that you're facing is with your manager, they may not want to share that with you because they know that you're also coaching your manager. So now, can an employee coach their manager? Yes, I believe yes. Now, you have to go back to trust and rapport. What kind of relationship do you have with that manager? Have they agreed to, okay, here's for some specific things that I need to work on? And is there a clear distinction that is not going to affect how they evaluate your performance as their employee? All of those things have to be contracted. That has to be part of the agreement. So, for example, as the managing director and owner of my company, there are some things that I talk to my client services manager, who works very closely with me, about things that I know that I need to work on. One of the things is that I tend to be very quick with doing things, and I tend to sometimes leave people behind or not bring them in the loop. So I have given her permission to watch out for when I do that, and check me, if you will. Okay, so that can be an illustration of that, but it has to be very clear. The contract or the agreement has to be very clear, and you have to also know that you have that kind of rapport with your manager and to be able to make it successful. Does that answer your question? Okay. Stephen says yes, thank you. All right, awesome. That was a really great question. Now we've talked about what coaching requires. Let's go into specific coaching tips. Now, coaching is very deep, and there are so many different methodologies and tenets. I use the coactive method of coaching, and a coactive, and that's back to that word of partnering. So the client or the coach works with the client to enable the client achieve what they want to achieve. So it's coactive. There's no dependency. So the client cannot depend on the coach to do their work for them. The coach cannot force their way, their ideas on the client. Okay, so that's the coactive method of coaching. There are different methodologies out there. Part of what ICF is trying to do is to standardize different coaching methodologies. But everything I'm going to share now in terms of coaching tips comes from that coactive method of coaching. Okay, so one of the coaching tips is presence, staying in the moment. What does that mean? Being aware. It essentially means bringing all of yourself to the moment of that coaching engagement, that coaching conversation. Bringing all of yourself. So again, going back to my example with the conversation that I had with my daughter yesterday, I had to bring the me who is a mother. I had to bring the me who's a coach, who can pick up the cues that she's giving me, and I'm going to talk a little bit more about that when we go into active listening. I had to bring the me who is a skeptic, who understands her, who's skeptical about some of the stories that she tells herself. I had to bring all of me, my values. I had to bring my values into that conversation. I had to bring the values I'm trying to instill into her as a mother, the teacher in me, into that conversation. So staying in the moment really simply means bringing all of you into that conversation. It simply means bringing your values, your passion, your creativity, your emotion, and your discerning judgment to every moment of that conversation. It simply means being aware. And part of what you're doing as a coach is to hold space for the client. So with my daughter, when we started the conversation yesterday, and I said, I started, Amen, what's going on? And she's like, I'm like, what does mean? So I'm probing now. And that's curiosity. I am suspending my judgment of what I think is going on and really placing the attention on her to get her to open up. And in order for you to do that, you have to be present. So you can't be coaching and your mind, your thoughts are going to, oh, I have this report due, or oh, I know they always do this. I know she's this issue is because of XYZ. This is her behavior. She's always taking over meetings. You can't come in with preconceived judgments and make an assessment. You have to stay present. You have to be able to hold space and catch what it is they're telling you. The second tip is active listening. This is a big one. As a coach, I always say that there are 3 levels of listening. So the first one is listening. The first level is listening to provide a response. That is when you're listening to the words of the person that's speaking to you, but you're just listening to provide a response. The second one is listening and listening with and also observing nonverbal cues. That is when you're listening and you're actually hearing what the person is saying. You're hearing what they're saying, you're listening. The third level 3 listening, active listening, is listening for intent. That is where you are listening to what they're saying. You are watching for the nonverbal cues, you're watching for the size, you're watching for the facial expressions, you're watching for the hand gestures, and you're making meaning. You're connecting with what they're saying. You are resonating with what they're saying. Active listening is a big part of coaching. So back with my daughter, conversation with my daughter, as she started to talk about what she was going through, I said nothing. And sometimes the conversation became awkward because there will be silence. That's another part of giving space in a coaching conversation. Give space. Allow the person to muster up courage in that moment to share something that they may be skeptical about sharing. Example, with Stephen, who said, can I coach my supervisor? Yes. Maybe in the middle of coaching your supervisor, and you're saying something to you, and there's silence because they're thinking, should I share this with this person? This is somebody who works for me. Are they going to see me in a different light? Will I lose some of my influence if I share this? All of that is going through their head at that time. And so that silence without interrupting gives them the opportunity to muster up the courage in the moment to share. Okay, so that's active listening. The third part is curiosity, powerful questioning. You, as a coach, remember, you're not trying to teach, you're not trying to direct, you're not trying to enforce your own way on them. You're trying to figure out what is going on at that time when you first start. So questions like, tell me how you feel so if somebody's sharing with you, when I'm in meetings, I freeze. I'm not able to contribute, and I just let other people take over. I have great thoughts, I have questions, but I'm just not able to take over. So a question can be, what is going through your mind when other people are talking and saying what it is that you want to say, but you can't say it. So that you're really, again, the point is you're trying to get them to specifically say what the issue is, and it's layers. So it takes a series of questioning. One of the questions that I use a lot is, or one of the statements that I use a lot is when somebody says, I feel like I'm useless. I say, well, say more about that. I always say more about that. Or what does that mean? Or how did you feel? Where did you feel it? Where did you feel it in your body? Those powerful questions will get people to open up and really address what the issue is. And then another coaching tip is courage. In the moment, remember, in the moment, if you pick up something that somebody says and it's part of a story or it's part of a negative pattern, is part of something that you have identified, you have to have courage in the moment to give them hard feedback. Back to the question with my daughter. Again, she's very critical of herself, and she has very high standards. And she's an excellent student, a first honor student. And so she scored. The issue was that she dropped on her Scantron test, and she because of that, she literally said to me when I saw that score, I felt useless. And the mother in me wanted to scream on the spot and say, don't you ever say that about yourself again. But the coaching me had to hold space for her and not interject myself and try to direct her. And I said, say more about that. What does that mean? What do you mean useless? And she started to say, most people see me, that this is my identity, that I'm an A student, I'm extremely smart. And so when I didn't meet up there, it seemed like the thing that I thought that I had that most described me was gone. And so what I picked up from that was, okay, it's not really about the Scantron test. Now we're talking about self-confidence. Now it's really more about self-confidence. And then that's when I jumped in and I gave her the feedback of, listen, this is not your Scantron test, and the fact that you are a first honor student is not your identity. There's more to you than that. And so I challenged her thinking in that moment and started to provide solutions on how she should see herself beyond just being an A student. And so that is exactly how I used coaching yesterday to solve that problem. And you see, the conversation started with, I didn't do good on my Scantron test, but that wasn't really the main issue. The main issue was, well, this is how I identify myself as an A student, as a very bright student. This is how everybody identifies. This is what makes me who I am. And if I don't have that, then who am I? So it was a self-identity issue. It was also a self-confidence issue. And so you have to have the courage to give hard feedback in the moment. So if you are coaching somebody or you're having a coaching conversation with somebody and they say something that piques your attention, or they say something that alludes to the problem and how they contribute to the problem, you as a coach, you have to have the courage to give hard feedback in the moment and challenge that. That's the rigor I'm talking about. So challenge that thinking for them. And you do it by asking a question. You do it also by presenting, by using analogies, by using stories to present a wider view for them to be able to catch it. And that way, when they want to fall into that pattern later on, they can catch it, and that's how behavioral change can come. There's so much that goes into this, but I hope I've been able to share some tips with you that you can use. A way that you can really get into using coaching as a tool is doing performance evaluations. That is, and so performance evaluations don't have to be, oh, tell me what you think you're doing right, or tell me what you think you need to work on. That is very generic. You can really use these tools once you've built rapport, once you've developed that trust, once you've contracted, and that person has said, yes, I'd like to work on my communication skills, or my behavior during meetings, or the fact that I interrupt, or I talk too much, or I talk too little during meetings, then you can really use those performance evaluations meetings to set up other conversations where you start to work on what the client was to work on. And then you can start to see tangible results that can overall help the team and help the organization achieve its mission. I hope that this was helpful. I'm going to stay on for like a couple more minutes for those who have questions, but I want to be mindful of the time. We are over time already, but I'm going to still stay on if people who have questions. I just want to quickly let you know we have a couple more LTLs coming up. Oh, so somebody just emailed me another great training. Thank you, Molly. A couple more LTLs coming up. February 19th, we have Lessons of Entrepreneurship. I'm going to be sharing on just the rigors of starting, growing, and maintaining a business. March, we're going to really focus on women in the month of March. So we're going to be talking about imposter syndrome, how self-doubt can cripple your success. We're also going to be talking about women in business and the SBA's Women-Owned Small Business Program, how you can qualify that program. And I wanted to share a resource with you. I try to do this at every LTL, especially when I'm talking about a topic that has to do with management or leadership. A resource is a book by Mary Beth O'Neill, and it's Executive Coaching with Backbone and Heart. A lot of what I share today comes out of some of the tenets that she shares, and also case studies. She has very great case studies. So if you are really interested in going deeper into coaching, I recommend that book. And that is pretty much it. And here is my contact information. Please stay in touch with us on Facebook, Twitter, and LinkedIn, and feel free to send an email. I'm going to stay on for a couple more minutes if you have any questions. Thank you so much for joining today. It has been fantastic sharing this time with you, and I hope that I was able to give you some nuggets today to help you with using coaching as a tool. Also, you will be getting a survey at the end of the webinar today. Maria, you're welcome. Patricia says, please send slides. We don't send the slides for our LTLs, but we do post them on our YouTube channel. And so you will be getting a link, or you can just go to YouTube and search AMA Consulting, and you'll be able to get to our YouTube channel. We usually post the webinars about an hour or two after we're done. Cynthia says, thank you. You are very welcome. Thank you for joining. I hope this was helpful. Maria says, thank you. You're welcome, Maria. Stephen says, thank you. Any other questions? Any questions, comments? I'm going to stay on for 30 more seconds. So if you have any questions about, how do I contract? How do I develop metrics? How do I develop myself as a coach? How do I develop that presence? Leslie, you're welcome. Leslie says, thank you and have a great day. Have a great day too. Have a great week. Any other specific questions? If something else comes to mind, feel free to email me. I'm always happy to interact. And I look forward to hearing from you if you have any other questions or something that comes up for you later on after the webinar is over. All right, I am going to go ahead and shut it down. Have a great day, everybody, and take care.